I can see it in your eyes. You're thinking, what is this wrinkly old mess? Well, I'm about to tell you. Hi there. Welcome to the Bass Fishing Life and my wrinkly old nasty shirt. I'm your host, Steve Rogers. Well, today I want to talk about my very first bass tournament ever. Now, I know a lot of you in the group here fish tournaments at a pretty serious level. Some of you fish just a few tournaments a year. And there's even those of you that have thought about, well, I might want to get into the tournament fishing scene, especially some of the younger members that we have. And then there's probably a lot of you that are like, no way, fishing is just recreational for me. I don't need to mess up my love of the sport by doing tournament fishing. But it's still something that is interesting to learn about and to read about. So I went up into the attic and I dug this shirt out. This is all the way back from 2000 and 2001, and I'm going to tell you the story of how I got into tournament fishing. If you watched our previous video that I did about a month ago about how I got where I am today, you know that I had my own fishing and hunting show on the Outdoor Channel. As a matter of fact, it was called Midwest Bass Fishing. Later it became Midwest Bass Fishing and Hunting Adventures, so this was the name of the particular program. When we got on the Outdoor Channel, we were on it for, I believe, the year 2000, and then coming into the next year, 2001, one of their program directors called me and said, hey, part of the deal that we have with Central Pro-Am Association, which was a very strong regional circuit in the Ozark Lakes in Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma. They even went over to fish Kentucky Lake one time, but really focused on those Ozark Lakes. The name of that organization was Central Pro-Am, and some of the best anglers in the country actually fish this Central Pro-Am circuit. And I actually knew that because I watched the Central Pro-Am television show on the Outdoor Channel. So when the program director called me and said, hey, we're looking for some of our hosts, Outdoor Channel hosts, to fish these events, I knew what he was talking about. And right away I thought to myself, there is no way that I want to fish one of these. So I said, nope, sorry, can't do it. He was looking for somebody to fish the whole series. I said, no, the show is really keeping me busy. I can't give up 5 weeks and go do this sort of thing. Well, then he called back later and he said, we got so far 4 hosts from 4 different shows to fish the first 4 events. We have one more event on Grand Lake of the Cherokees in Oklahoma that we need somebody to fish. Will you please do it? And I said, fine. I'll go ahead and fish this event for the Outdoor Channel. Hung up the phone and immediately my stomach started to turn and I was dreading, this was about January or February, and I was dreading those dates in August for 8 months. I did not want to go and fish that particular tournament. I was a decent angler, but I thought to myself, there is no way I could compete against these guys. So here we go. The season starts. Tournament number 1 in the year 2001. The host for the Outdoor Channel weighs 0 fish. Tournament number 2. The host for the Outdoor Channel, a different show host, weighs in 0 fish. Tournament number 3, same thing. The host weighs 0 fish. Tournament number 4, the host once again weighs 0 fish. So here are these hosts on this channel that are supposed to know what they're doing, and over the course of 4 different events, 4 different hosts, they weigh 0 fish. The pressure is mounting. I thought to myself, are you kidding me? Probably at this point, the regulars on the circuit have seen this through 4 events, and now I've got to go to Grand Lake of the Cherokees in Oklahoma and try to not make a fool out of myself. My brother was so nice enough to come from Iowa all the way back here to Illinois and ride with me all the way down. As a matter of fact, for the majority of the drive, he had to be behind the wheel because I was so nauseous all the way there. The 8-9 hour trip to Grand Lake to Grove, Oklahoma, I was sick the whole way. I was popping Imodium like most people would eat M&Ms. And if you know anything about being ill, Imodium is an anti-diarrheal pill. So my stomach was rocking and a rolling, and I'm just chucking these Imodium as we go, try to keep myself under control in this 9-hour truck ride down to Grove, Oklahoma. I had done a ton of research about fishing Grand Lake of the Cherokees that time of year, what some consistent patterns were. We did not have a whole lot of internet stuff going on then. You know, we had a little bit of stuff online, but not like we do today. There was no such thing as Google Earth. I couldn't, take a look at a satellite image of the lake, so I had bought one of the fishing hotspots maps, and I had studied that thing from one end to the other. The first day of practice, I go out and I think to myself, well, I'm going to see if I can go ahead and get a pattern going that seems to have been consistent in years past. I had a white square bill crankbait. It was a 4S, shallow running crankbait, tied onto a rod, and I had read that the color white on this particular lake in the heat of the summer was a really good lure, and that even though it was blistering hot and the water temperatures were blistering hot, Grand Lake of the Cherokees has a really good population of fish that stay shallow all the time. So that's what I was going with. I was not a good offshore angler at that point in time. I needed to get something going in the shallows. So day one of practice goes pretty good. The first dock that I pull up onto, I go ahead and I catch about, a couple 2-pound largemouth right off the corner of the dock. I thought, oh man, this is awesome. This is where I'm going to start. Day two of practice, goes pretty good. I feel decent about myself. I'm not quite as sick as I was on the way down in the truck. And then I go to the pre-tournament meeting, the pairings meeting, where we pair up the pros. I was fishing the pro side with our co-anglers or amateurs at that particular meeting. And I walk into this meeting, and right in front of me is Daryl Robertson. He had just won that inaugural Ranger M1 tournament and took home a check for $500,000. He was literally sitting this far away from me, and my nauseous stomach just started to rock and roll all over again. Guys in that room go on to fish the Bassmaster, what came the Elite Series. Back then it was like the top 150. These guys are in this room, and my stomach just started to explode. I thought, what am I doing? This is horrible. I meet my partner, my co-angler, my amateur partner for the next day, and we get a plan where we're going to meet, and I go home and I sleep zero. I'm telling you, I don't even catch one wink of sleep. My brother is laughing at me the entire time. He's not fishing the event, but he came to be a moral support for me. So we get up and we get to the boat ramp, and as much as I had tried to calm my nerves, if you've ever been to an event, the boat ramp is super intimidating. Here you've got way over 100 trucks and boats just going through this line, backing up, dropping their boats into the water, lickety split like that. Super professional. These guys got rods all over the place. I got my ratty old Outdoor Channel shirt, and I can just tell people are looking at me going, it's another one of those guys. Get ready for a big old zero once again. It was so intimidating. And I finally pick up my amateur partner, and he looks on the deck of my boat, and I've got one rod on the boat. That's it. I didn't know any better. Here other guys have got 15 rods, 20 rods, 12 rods, whatever, all hooked up. I got one rod on the boat, and he gets in, my amateur partner gets in, and he goes, oh man, I am so glad that I drew you. I'm like, why? And he looks at me and says, you got something going on. I'm like, okay, whatever. Why do you say that? Because you got one rod on the boat. You know exactly what you're doing. Well, I didn't think about it that way. I thought of it as I have nothing else going on, so why do I need two rods? So we run off to that first boat dock that I had on the first morning of practice, and I thought to myself, I'm going to catch that fish that I caught 3 days ago. So naive that that's probably not going to happen. Make my first cast. I pitched that 4S right there by that floating dock, and I'm cranking it by, and as soon as it got to the front corner, boom, that fish nailed it. I had one in the live well on my first cast of my very first tournament, and at that point my nerves started to settle down just a little bit, but not a lot. Fast forward through 2 days, there were 112 anglers fishing this event. I just counted them. I've got a binder right here that has all of my tournament finishes in there and the events that I fished. There's 112 anglers, and I ended up, let me go ahead and open this up. And here it is, the standings for Grand Lake of the Cherokees, August 4th through 5th, 2001. And there I am in 38th place right here out of 112 anglers. I absolutely could not believe it. According to this, on day one, I weighed 3 fish for 5.3 pounds, and then day 2 I weighed 3 fish for 6.7 pounds, and that was enough to get me into 38th place. I had limits both days, but I couldn't land them. They came off. I had my 5th fish on multiple times, the 4th fish on multiple times, and just couldn't land him. If I was a more efficient angler at that point and I knew the things I know now back then, I would have had 2 limits pretty easy. But I was so relieved. I was the first host for the Outdoor Channel in that series to weigh any fish. And because of that, that program director called me shortly after that event, and then they paid for me to fish all the Central Pro-Am events for the next 4 or 5 years. And that is how I cut my teeth in the tournament fishing world. It's something I didn't plan on doing. I was kind of arm twisted into giving it a shot. I'm so glad that I did, because I'm a much better angler today than I was back in 2000 and 2001. Probably the biggest benefit of tournament fishing, one, the camaraderie is excellent, but the biggest benefit is that you're forced to fish in a wide variety of conditions on a wide variety of different lakes, and that time on the water is what it takes to become a better, more versatile angler. So looking back, yep, this shirt's all wrinkled, shirt's all nasty, it kind of smells from being up in the attic, but there's a lot of history with this shirt right here, and it is something that I don't ever see myself getting rid of. So for those of you that fish tournaments, congratulations and good luck on your upcoming events this next season. And for those of you that have maybe thought about it, go ahead and give it a try at a local level. Find a buddy, go out and fish. It will make you a better angler. And I just wanted to share my story with you. And on a side note, I do not recommend eating Imodium like M&Ms. It tends to cause a few issues. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'll see you next time. I'm your host, Steve Rogers.